beyond the churning smoke, somebody is screaming. Somebody is screaming his name. Raymond! Raymond de Guise, lead dancer at the Buckingham, barely misses a beat. His eyes pan around, taking in the guests and hotel staff who are rushing to the ballroom to lend what assistance they can and pick out one figure among them. Nancy Nettleton tries to push through the crowd to reach Raymond, but Raymond is already resolved, his mind already made up. He turns to face the doors that just cast him out. The flames are fiercer now, advancing angrily through the smoke. "Raymond!" the voice calls. "Raymond!" There are moments in life when you act without thinking, when you forget all thoughts of the future and act now, because you must, before it's too late. Lives change in moments like these. For Raymond de Guise, this is one of those moments. So he plunges into the fire. 8 months earlier, April 1937. Chapter 1. The inaugural spring ball at the Buckingham Hotel was about to begin, and in the Grand Ballroom, strings of yellow lights were arranged in garlands. The saxophonists, trumpeters, and trombonists of the Archie Adams Orchestra had already taken their places on the ballroom stage when the doors opened up, and there, framed in their light, stood Archie Adams himself. Distinguished and grey, wearing his trademark black bow tie, with eyes the cobalt of the skies above Berkeley Square, he soaked up the applause of the guests who filled the ballroom. Then, taking up his stool behind the grand piano, he ran his fingers along the ivory keys, and the ballroom came alive. For a moment, Archie seemed imperious, the king of the ballroom, a god with grey hair and a suit of tailored white silk. Under his direction, the old Duke Ellington number, In a Sentimental Mood, filled the cavernous interior of the Grand. Excitement stirred around its edges, where lords and ladies, and every debutante recently presented at the royal court, had been holding their breath in anticipation. Conversations were silenced. Heads turned. As one, the hotel's guests watched, rapt, as the Buckingham's dancers flocked out onto the floor. Hidden among the debutantes stood a tall girl with immaculately sculpted auburn hair and a gown of golden satin, embroidered with rows of pearls along its every seam. Although she looked young enough to be a debutante herself, Vivienne Edgerton could scarcely tolerate the shrieks of delight which filled her ears when, down on the dance floor, the elegant Helene Marchmont twirled around her partner. Helene had been a star at the Buckingham ever since the Grand opened its doors, but Vivienne's eyes were fixed, instead, on Helene's partner, the Buckingham's male principal, with his wild black hair and sad almond eyes. A girl could get lost in those eyes, thought Vivienne. They invited you to fall in, deep and fast. And those arms. In a Sentimental Mood was coming to an end. The orchestra exploded in a rapture of trombone. On the ballroom floor, the hotel dancers fanned apart, reaching out to partner up with the guests waiting on its fringes, while in its heart, Helene and her debonair partner came to the climax of their dance. Arms around each other, they turned and turned again. Vivienne watched the way they gazed at each other, with such exquisite longing. Then, with the final flourish from the orchestra, they came apart to soak up the applause. In the middle of the ballroom stood Helene Marchmont, and Jean Sheldon, formerly of the Imperial Hotel, newly made the principal dancer at the Buckingham itself. Vivienne watched, with something approaching amusement, as Sheldon waltzed away to accept the hand of the first debutante who reached him. He was a serviceable dancer, she supposed. He'd made a name for himself, romancing the guests at the Imperial. But he was no Raymond de Guise. The band was lurching into its next number when Vivienne felt a tap on her arm and turned to discover Billy Brogan standing at her heel. Brogan was still like a faithful hound, Vivienne decided, even though this new season found him in the smart black uniform of the hotel's concierges, not the forgettable grey that the hotel pages all wore. 16 years old and 2 years Vivienne's junior, Billy had been a page until his recent promotion. He was not a bad sort, but he had a tendency